The Shadow of Justice. I'm Tom, and this is the story of how I dismantled a man's life, piece by piece, not out of anger, but out of a cold, calculated need for justice. A few years back, I was a detective in a sleepy little town, where everyone thought crime was just something that happened elsewhere. But then, there was the case of Emily, a high school girl, vibrant and full of life, who vanished one day. But I knew what I'd become, a man driven by revenge, who used every tool at his disposal to destroy another life. I had to live with that, and I wasn't sure if I could ever truly return to who I was before all this began. This is my story, a tale of revenge that consumed me, but one that I believe was necessary. I hope you understand, and I hope Emily can finally rest in peace, knowing her shadow of justice was cast over her killer. I became a shadow, living off savings, dedicating my life to ensuring Mark would pay for what he did. First, I infiltrated his life. I got a job at his company under a new identity, William, with a fabricated past that was just believable enough. I learned everything about him, his habits, his fears, his weaknesses. Mark was good at faking a perfect life, but he had secrets, dark ones. Over months, I began my work. I started by planting seeds of doubt about his integrity. Anonymous tips to his business partners about shady dealings, which were not entirely false. I found enough in his business dealings to make those tips convincing. His company began to falter. Next, I targeted his personal life. Mark had a wife, Susan, who loved him, but was blind to his darker side. I sent her anonymous letters, each one revealing a bit more about Mark's past indiscretions, including his involvement with Emily's disappearance. They were crafted to look like they came from someone close, someone she trusted. Their marriage crumbled under the weight of doubt and betrayal, but that wasn't enough. I wanted him to feel the isolation, the fear that Emily must have felt. I started haunting his nights. I would leave notes in places only he would find, things like, "I know what you did to Emily," or "Your secrets will destroy you." I made sure his home security cameras caught shadowy figures moving around his property at night, just enough to keep him paranoid. His mental health deteriorated. He was no longer the confident man he once was. He started drinking heavily. His once sharp business acumen dulled. His friends distanced themselves, fearing his downfall would drag them down to dot. Then came the final act. I knew Mark had one fear above all else, losing everything he built. So, I manipulated the market around his business. Using my connections from my detective days, I got insiders to pull out investments, and I planted stories in financial news about his company being on the brink. His business collapsed. He was bankrupt, his reputation in tatters. But the true end was when I arranged for him to be at an old, abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. I knew he'd come. He was desperate for any deal that could save him. There, I confronted him, not with violence, but with the truth. I revealed my identity, showed him all the evidence I had amassed over the years, including new pieces from his past, that linked him conclusively to Emily's murder. Mark was broken, sobbing, confessing, not knowing I was recording every word. The next day, I handed over the recording and all my evidence to the police. This time, there was no doubt. Mark was arrested, charged, and eventually convicted of Emily's murder. I didn't feel joy at his downfall. I felt relief, a sort of peace knowing Emily had some form of justice. But I knew what I'd become, a man driven by revenge, who used every tool at his disposal to destroy another life. I had to live with that, and I wasn't sure if I could ever truly return to who I was before all this began. This is my story. A tale of revenge that consumed me, but one that I believe was necessary. I hope you understand, and I hope Emily can finally rest in peace, knowing her shadow of justice was cast over her killer.